Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video, we got some updates for patch 8.3 PTR that has to do with Azerite gear. Now, this is going to be everything that you'll need to know for patch 8.3 in terms of what will be happening to your Azerite gear, as well as the Titan Residium. Do you keep any? And what is going to be the price of the Azerite gear from your Azerite vendor come patch 8.3? Plus, a great change that Blizzard added if you raid in the next tier. Okay, so there's a lot for us to cover. First of all, Blizzard decided to make an executive decision not to let anybody be able to save up any of your chalk. So essentially, once the patch arrives, you lose all your Titan Residium. That means if you're someone who is thinking maybe store up a bunch of this, you're not going to be able to. Instead, Titan Residium is actually going to be converted into silver. So you'll get very little gold out of it. But if you take a look at my mailbox right now, I don't know exactly how much Titan Residium I had. I just recently bought an Azerite piece of gear, so I had probably very, very little. Or maybe at the time of copying this character, I might have had at least enough for an Azerite piece of gear worth, but I got 522 gold in my mailbox. They're 10 silver each, so they're really not worth, and I don't think it's worth stacking just for the gold alone. I mean, I guess if you don't have any reason to buy any Azerite gear at all, then yeah, you could stack this up and then get quite a bit of gold once the patch arrives. However, if you're someone who wants to mess around with different builds and different specs and you always wanted to, now would be a great time to buy a bunch of full 45 gear for all the old specs that you were interested in playing, just to get around to checking them out and seeing if that's something you might want to consider for the next tier in patch 8.3. The Titan Residium vendors are also a little bit different in terms of the gear they sell. This means because Blizzard doesn't have you do a reset with Titan Residium means that the prices should be fairly stable and normal. So take a look at the prices of the purveyor of exquisite furnishings. You see there's different prices for the gear that we have. In the full 45 tier, we only need 860 Residium in order to buy a basic piece of full 45 gear. Then you have the 460 item level, which is going to be 4,500. And then finally, you have the big one for 23,750, the 475 pieces of Azerite gear. You also see the price of specific pieces of Azerite gear, and it looks like there are only 20,000. So a randomized piece of gear right now actually costs so much more than a specific piece of gear. I don't know if this was intentional. Pretty sure the numbers on these are going to change, but this basically would mean that if you get a certain amount of Azerite gear, you could just buy just a headpiece. Instead of buying a randomized version which costs more, you could just buy a specific piece you need. Maybe this is intentional, maybe this is an issue with Blizzard's numbers. Maybe they'll still keep the specific pieces a little bit more exclusive, but this is the last patch of patch 8.3 and last patch of Shadowlands. So maybe they decided to be like, you know what, alright, let everybody buy the gear they want, let them enjoy the game how they want to, let's take the RNG out of the game for the last patch so everybody can do all the things they want to do, whether you change a character, change a class for Shadowlands, or whatever it may be. Which might be a good thing. Again, I still feel like the numbers are off, but if we are getting what we're getting right now with the idea that, hey, these are going to be more expensive, that the specific pieces of gear, if those become more expensive, then these are the prices. You get 464 at 445, 4,500 for a 460, and 23,000 for a 475 piece of Azerite gear. This also means that the amount of Azerite Residium we'll get from our Mythic Plus chest and for scrapping gear is also going to change, but this isn't something I can currently test. As right now, there's not a lot of groups doing Mythic Plus runs, and so far I've never actually been on PTR where I was able to complete a dungeon and receive a chest to open for the week. So I've never actually seen that work out, so I wonder if anybody else has had the opportunity to test stuff like that. But this has been a recent update as far as I know, or at least this is a recent update in what I've seen. If Blizzard does decide to keep for specific Azerite gear a specific number, then I think they should take out the 470 versions of gear. So let's say for someone just starting the game, getting a randomized piece of 445 or 460 is fine, but if someone ends up saving up enough Residium and just buys a specific piece, I really don't think that would be a bad idea for the very last patch of BFA. I feel like, first of all, it'd be a lot easier to get your ults up and running, since everybody has to farm the essences in order to upgrade our necklaces. We have to farm more AP, even though Blizzard did put a cap on just how much of a level you need, or you'll be able to functionally farm for patch 8.3. So, I don't know what they're going to do. I think this is still going to go to be very, very expensive, but it's same Azerite gear that you've had before. The gear itself doesn't change, so it's going to be the very last patch of us getting the same pieces that you've at one point already unlocked. Now, if you're someone who does a lot of raiding, we should be also mentioned that they decided to change a couple things when it comes to your acquisition of Azerite gear. And this is so far only a change for anybody who does any of the raids. With the Neolotha, the Waking City, the new raid is actually going to be a little bit different on how Blizzard will distribute out the raid gear. First of all, not every boss is going to have Azerite gear, but every boss that does have Azerite gear will have the best pieces of Azerite traits on that gear for your character. For example, second boss Maut with Stygian Guise. Taking a look at the traits for this one is, we got ourselves Nothing Personal. We got Twist the Knife, which is a good single target option for Assassination. Beautiful double dose. You got Heart of Darkness if you want to get yourself a little bit extra stats and corruption. You got the secondaries, the utility stuff, and the extra. But that's a decent option for a pure single target. If you're Outlaw, you get a choice of Deadshot and Ace Up Your Sleeve already in the first row. This is literally your best single target traits. Or if you want to go for Keep Your Wits and maybe Ace Up Your Sleeve if you need that a little bit extra AoE. Same thing for sub. Not a lot of people play sub in PvE, but Knight's Vengeance is a great trait for single target, especially good for PvP, and with a higher item level on 475, this thing is gonna make a Viscerator do quite a bit of damage. And so is First Dance as well as Inevitability. Both of these traits are really strong for sub. Taking a look at a couple other characters, we also got ourselves the Hive Mind. No, he doesn't have any gear. We got ourselves Shadar the Insatiable, Destrath. It looks like a lot of these guys don't even have Azerite gear for rogues. I'm actually very surprised because I think Blizzard is still changing around what items they have, but they're supposed to have a lot more. Here's a chest with Dark Heart Robe for rogues. And as you can see, it's a very, very similar setup again. You have Nothing Personal, you have Heart of Darkness, you have Double Dose, you have Knight's Vengeance, First Dance, Deadshot, Ace Up Your Sleeve, Brigands. So like, this is actually really good traits in general for pure single target. So it looks like Blizzard decided that, hey, if somebody is doing raids, the most you're going to want to look for some single target damage. There is going to be some alternatives for AoE, but it looks like Blizzard decided to handpick some of this Azerite gear for all these different various pieces. Taking a look at Radden the Despoiled, we also got another head, the Gibbering Maw. Again, we have Ace Up Your Sleeve combo with a Deadshot. We have Double Dose with the Choice of Shrouded with Nothing Personal. Again, there's Knight's Vengeance, there's the First Dance, there's Blade in the Shadows. Next character, oh, it looks like Rogues got most of the Azerite gear from the last few bosses. Beautiful, that's going to be hard to farm. Spalders of the Aberrant Allure are going to be the Shoulders. Those have Deadshot, Keep Your Wits, Gather Overwhelming Power. Like, again, as I said earlier, you just get a really good array of traits that are focused on single target. Not all of them are going to be amazing, like Brigand's Blitz is kind of a side grade for Outlaw. So is Shrouded Suffocation. And I believe you only want one Invisibility, one Blade in Shadows for sub. It's going to be really just trying to get maybe one First Dance, maybe two. But it's mostly stacking like a whole nother trait. Oh yeah, it does look like Rogue's pieces are going to be from literally the last few bosses. Hopefully they'll shuffle it around because there's a lot of gaps in between middle. Take a look at this guy. We also got, again, Keep Your Wits, or you can go Brigands. You got Deadshot, which is good for single target. Same thing for Assassination. You got Twist the Knife. You have yourself Nothing Personal. Also, Heart of Darkness is good on its own because it'll increase all your stats while your corruption is a level 25 or higher. It's pretty strong on its own because you will be running a certain amount of corruption gear. Last boss, we got a set of Shoulders again. And again, you got a good setup of pretty good single target traits. So maybe Blizzard will fill out the rest of the bosses with more Azerite gear, so there'll be more opportunities for rogues, or maybe they won't. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that all turns out. But either way, it looks like they handpicked a lot of the traits that are best for the raid, that are most used for raiding and single target, and tried to give each spec, at least for rogue, an array of good single target traits. This is most likely common with all the other classes and specs as well, so be sure to check out your character once patch 8.3 drops. to make sure what Azerite gear you can get from each boss. Because if you're someone who does mostly raiding or maybe even just PvP and you want some good single target traits that you might be able to get from raids, you might just want to hop into some normal versions of Neolotha, maybe some heroics if possible. Maybe if you want one of the lucky few to get maybe some of the best Azerite gear from the first 3 bosses, you might be able to even jump onto those on Mythic, since they should be fairly easy doable. At least with my PTR testing, these first 2 bosses were actually very easy to do. So there's a lot of opportunity for you guys to figure out which pieces you need, and I think it's good that Blizzard is trying to standardize these. I think it would have been better if they started doing this from the beginning, like if the raid pieces had the best single target stuff. And I guess, you know, the Azerite gear vendor will have the opportunity for more AoE concept, more, you know, what you would need for Mythic Pluses. You have a variety of AoE abilities, you have a variety of other different traits that are, like, let's say Scent Blood is not super amazing for Assassination unless you're playing like a very PvP focused or multi-dot spread build, or Perforate is generally not that good, or even Replicant Shadows for sub, but in a dungeon it could be good because that's AoE. Or even things like, I don't know, Snake Eyes could be good in only certain few key situations, but maybe you want PvP and Snake Eyes is going to be your way to go for Outlaw. Little things like that. So I think this is good that they're trying to standardize it in order to make it easier for people to acquire their Azerite gear. Now, of course, you probably are thinking there might be an exploit to get this gear right now. Look at that, my bags have all that Azerite gear on it, and I don't have any chalk to begin with. I don't have any Residium. So what if I were to go and scrap my Azerite gear to see if I can get any kind of chalk? So here I am visiting the scrap yard, or the Shred Master. MK1 is the name on the Horde side. And if you were to scrap all your Azerite gear into it, you'll actually notice that none of them spit out any chalk or Residium. With either way you use the word, it doesn't spit out any Residium, so you won't really be able to cheese it like that. Because it will make sense, because every one of these 445 pieces is about 11,000 Residium, but it looks like Blizzard decided to take every other Azerite piece of gear from Season 3, or I guess even any season that is not Season 4, which is going to be this new season, and remove any Residium that you might be able to get out of it. So if you're trying to find a way to save your Residium, not gonna happen. You'll be able to just get raw mats if you still use those. Those might be usable for like future profession stuff that will be in patch 8.3. Maybe you'll need more of that explosive to craft some of your items that you're looking for. But yeah, no way of getting Residium as of right now, except for doing the actual keys. So this should be pretty, yeah. So this is everything I think that I wanted to cover for this patch 8.3 update when it comes to Residium gear. So if you are playing in the game right now, there's no real need for you to save Residium. If you don't have any uses for it, you could get a bit of extra gold if you save enough of it. That might be able to cover some early game repairs when it comes to checking out the new patch, and maybe, you know, a couple first few wipes in a raid whenever that comes out. But that's about all you really get with the patch 8.3 Residium stuff. Whatever gear you have right now is not going to be able to be scrapped for Residium, so there's no really big need for you to scrap it. You can keep it for various different builds that you want to run. And I would say the patch 8.3 would be also a great time for you to get onto any alts. If you want to play a whole nother character, maybe there's a character you want to explore for, you know, before Shadowlands, and you want to get into what's like to start healing as a druid, or maybe just start tanking as a paladin. You've never done it before. Maybe even, you know, picking up a whole new DPS. You were, let's say, melee all the time. You want to do some ranged. 8.3 I would think is a great time to do it. It's a great opportunity for a fresh restart. The gear you'll be able to get from the new raid is 445 item levels, so you'll be able to catch up very quickly just from a couple normals. And even heroics, you're just going to be able to get so much gear out of it too. And of course, Mythic Plus is also going to be a thing too, that goes all the way up to 15s in terms of rewards for higher item level pieces. So that should be all nice and dandy. Anyway, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Hopefully I was able to cover just about everything that is needed to know about Residium. I believe I covered everything that I needed, that I think you guys would find important. But yeah, this is going to be what patch 8.3 is looking like, of how they're setting everybody up. It's different than what they wanted to originally have done with like Residium stuff. They usually let you stockpile, but then the prices for the next gear are absorbingly high, so there's no way you'll be able to even buy your first piece from literally day one. But I guess they wanted to make sure that there's no farming, you don't need to grind, there's no crazy prep before patch 8.3. So if you want to take some time, especially with the holidays coming up, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm hoping that patch 8.3 drops right after the holidays, hopefully on the 7th would probably be the best date in January. That'll be the next Tuesday available. Maybe the 14th, but I really hope it'll be the 7th. I think it'll be the best time because, you know, it'll be the end to the WoW 15th anniversary event. So most people would have done their BGs from Korok's Revenge or would have done everything to get the Obsidian Worldbreaker mount by then. So the event is going to be gone. It'll be the perfect time to kickstart the patch then and there, so people can start doing their keys, people can start prepping for raid, grinding the AP, whatever they need to do. So yeah, hopefully that'll be around the time when that all happens, but no guarantee yet. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed it and find this video informative. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.